Today, we're looking at the chunk size metaprogram. Are you the type of person who thrives on detail? You need information to make the world make sense. Or perhaps you're someone who gets overwhelmed by too much detail. This is what we know as the chunk size. This is how much information a person brings in at a given point in time. We have here either the big picture or global, or detail or small chunk size. If someone is more prone to details, they're going to be communicating with more information. And that information is information that for them makes sense and they think you need to know. The big picture and the bigger picture, the big picture person is, they're going to give a global viewpoint. If you ask, for example, where do you live to somebody who's more global, the real big picture will say Australia. The detail will say, I live 2 kilometers away from the airport in Sydney, Australia. A little bit more detail. They could probably get even more detailed than that. But somewhere in the middle is where the majority of us are. Like most meta programs, those filters of the unconscious mind, these are not personality traits. They're not hardwired at all. In fact, oftentimes these are context specific. This meta program, however, seems to have more fluidity in the majority of somebody's life, which is easy then to give it a personality trait or a label of this person is. Be careful not to do that, because there might be some aspects of area where you're more big picture and other aspects where you tend to err more on the details. With this one, when I'm communicating with somebody, first I want to tune in and listen. I want to listen to how are they sharing information. If I ask them a question of, what do you enjoy doing on a weekend? And they give me a word or 2 words or 2 sentences, if I have to ask more questions, that gives me more of a global understanding, or that they are more of a global communicator in that instance. So the more questions I need to ask, the bigger picture they're communicating in. If somebody, however, launches into a story with a lot of detail about when, where, how, and what they were doing, then they're probably prone to more details. If they ask you for more details, they're probably more detail oriented. If they're asking for just a general overview or the Reader's Digest version of something, they're probably asking for the big picture. So I want to understand this information. Is someone making sense of the world? Are they gathering information based on the global? And when somebody's more global, they're going to do a lot more assumptions. They're going to distort, delete, and generalize probably a lot more. If I notice that someone is communicating more with that big picture, they're probably generalizing a whole lot too. They are distorting, deleting, and generalizing, making up aspects of what this big picture means, those assumptions that we have in life. And in general, they might not always be correct, which is what happens when we don't have a lot of detail. But the details might overwhelm them, or they get lost, or they get bored, or they'll get stuck in the details. So if I'm communicating to somebody and I prefer details, I want to be able to speak more at that big picture and give people details in small bite-sized chunks. So therefore, if I have somebody working on a new project with me and they're more big picture oriented, I want to make sure they understand the big picture. Maybe this is even drawing a diagram or seeing how things connect, but give them bite-sized pieces if I'm going into the detail. So I'll give you 2 things today. Tomorrow, we'll talk about something else. 2 things tomorrow, 1 more thing the next day. 1 more thing today, 1 more thing tomorrow. So bite-sized, so we're not overwhelming somebody with a detail, but always making sure when I'm communicating to that big picture person, that global, that I am making sure that the information that I'm sharing is always connected back to the big picture. How is it related to the big picture? Where if I'm communicating to somebody that needs more of the detail, they may or may not even need to see the big picture. Most of the time, having the big picture to connect to is a useful thing, but there are some people who just don't care. And when they don't care, it's because they're very task focused and they just need to come in and do this, 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 and this. And it doesn't matter if they know how it all fits together or not. The bigger detail oriented someone is, they're going to lose sight of the big picture. This is that saying, losing the forest for the trees, because they're noticing each and every tree. They're not noticing, hey, I'm in the forest. So if I'm working with somebody who's very detail oriented, they may forget that there's other people involved, that there's other programs and projects that this connects into. And so allowing, if it's important, allowing myself a way to communicate the detail of the big picture to them how they need it. However, if I communicate too abstractly, too much ambiguity for somebody who needs detail, they're going to get bored, they're going to disconnect, and they're not going to be interested and possibly go away. Same thing, if somebody gets too much detail and they're not a high details person, that same stuff's going to happen. They're going to get bored, they're going to get frustrated, they're going to move away. So finding that right level and balance. I have a question to share with you. Here's the question. Is that enough information? Question mark. Is that enough information? Question mark. If you don't know if somebody communicates with a big picture or detail, or even if you know, meet them where you think they need to, or somewhere right in the middle with a little bit of big picture and then detail. Probably starting with a big picture and then connect the detail into that big picture. And then ask that question, is that enough information? The big picture thinker will go, yep, unless they have other questions. The detail person will probably want more information. And so give them more information. And when you learn what level does a person need, what level of detail does a person need, then you will be able to deliver that to them. When we can respect somebody's communication style, speak in that big picture with some people, speak in the details with others, this helps us to be able to be better understood. So if you want your message to go in without somebody having to decipher it, make sense of it, distort, delete, and generalize like there's no tomorrow, communicate how somebody else needs to be communicated to. Enjoy this one, have fun, be sure to like this, share this, tell other people about my channel. Thank you.